The mining station Kepler-7 hung in the void like a dying star, its hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into the cold darkness of space. Inside the main habitat ring, 300 survivors huddled together in what had once been the cafeteria, now the only section still holding air. Commander Zara Theklan pressed her scaled hand against the viewport, watching debris from their destroyed defense fleet drift past like metallic snow. The Vorthak raiders had come without warning, their black ships emerging from hyperspace like harbingers of death. Within hours, they had shattered every defense, disabled the station's engines, and begun their systematic harvest of the civilians. How long before they breached the final barrier? Asked Dr. Miranjalik, his feathered crest drooping with exhaustion. The avian medic had been working non-stop for 3 days, treating the wounded with dwindling supplies. Theklan's throat sacs deflated in resignation. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're fortunate. The emergency shields weren't designed to withstand concentrated plasma bombardment. Around them, families clung to each other. Kytherian children with their luminescent patches flickered dimly in fear. Centaurian elders clicked their mandibles in ancient death songs. The ethereal refugees who had sought sanctuary here just weeks ago floated in their containment suits, their gaseous forms swirling with patterns of despair. "What about the distress beacon?" whispered Engineer Velkaran, his trunk-like appendages trembling. "Surely someone received it." "We sent it on all frequencies," Theklan replied, though her voice carried little hope. "But we're in the outer rim. The nearest Galactic Defense Force station is 47 light-years away. Even if they responded immediately." She didn't need to finish. They all understood the mathematics of their doom. No ship could cover that distance in time, not even the fastest vessels in the galaxy. The Vorthak would break through long before any rescue could arrive. A tremendous impact shook the station, sending loose debris rattling across the deck. Emergency lights flickered as another section of the outer hull was stripped away. Through the viewport, Theklan could see the Vorthak harvester ships positioning themselves for the final assault. Soon they would punch through the last barriers and begin collecting their prizes, living beings to sell in the slave markets of the void reaches. "I want you all to know," Theklan announced, turning to address the survivors, "that you have shown courage beyond measure. When the histories are written, they will remember how the people of Kepler-7 faced the darkness with dignity." A child began to cry, the sound echoing through the chamber like a broken hymn. Parents held their young closer, whispering words of comfort they no longer believed. The elderly closed their eyes and began final prayers to whatever gods they served. That's when the sensors began screaming. Chief Technician Borax, one of the few crew members still at his post, looked up from his console with confusion. "Commander, I'm detecting a massive spatial distortion forming at bearing 27 Mark IV. Another Vorthak ship?" Theklan's heart sank further. As if their situation could get worse. "Negative." Borax's compound eyes widened as he studied the readings. "The signature is unusual. I've never seen anything like it. The distortion is massive, but the energy pattern doesn't match any known drive system." Outside, the fabric of space began to ripple like water. Stars stretched and twisted as reality itself seemed to fold. The Vorthak raiders paused their assault, their ships turning to face this new phenomenon with what could only be described as alarm. "By the eternal flame," gasped Dr. Jalik, his beak hanging open. "Look at the size of that distortion field." The tear in spacetime widened, revealing not the sterile blackness of normal hyperspace, but something far more ominous. A deep, crushing darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. From within this artificial abyss, something was emerging. First came the bow, a wedge of metal so dark it seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. Then, the main hull began to manifest, kilometer after kilometer of angular armor plating marked with symbols none of them recognized. Weapon ports lined its flanks like the eyes of some predatory beast, and massive engines at its stern glowed with an inner fire that spoke of barely contained power. The ship was impossibly large, dwarfing even the Vorthak dreadnoughts. As it cleared the spatial rift, the tear sealed behind it with a thunderclap that shook the entire system. "What species builds ships like that?" someone whispered. Borax checked and rechecked his instruments, his voice trembling with disbelief. "According to the database, those markings." "Commander, that's a human vessel." The name sent a ripple of confusion through the survivors. Most had heard the stories, tales of a young species from the galactic rim who had somehow survived on a death world. But humans were myths, legends told in spacer bars about beings too primitive to matter in galactic affairs. Outside, the massive battleship turned its attention to the Vorthak fleet, and, for the first time in 3 days, Commander Theklan allowed herself to hope. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as he studied the tactical display. 48 hours ago, his ship had been conducting deep space reconnaissance in the void reaches when they intercepted the distress signal. Most admirals would have logged it and passed it to the appropriate authorities. Kane had ordered an immediate jump to the source. "Tactical assessment, Commander Hayes," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who had spent 30 years fighting in the dark between stars. Commander Sarah Hayes, his tactical officer, highlighted the enemy formations on the main screen. 15 Vorthak raiders, sir. Standard configuration, 3 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, 4 assault transports. They've got the mining stations surrounded and are preparing to breach the final defensive barriers." Kane nodded grimly. He knew the Vorthak reputation well. Pirates, slavers, and, worse, they were one of the few species that even hardened criminals avoided. "Estimated civilian count on that station?" "Unknown, sir, but scanner readings suggest at least 300 life signs." "Multiple species." Hayes paused, checking her console. "Sir, they're not responding to our hails. The Vorthak ships are moving to intercept us." Through the massive viewport, Kane could see the alien raiders turning toward the Retribution like sharks sensing blood in the water. Their ships were sleek and predatory, designed for speed and overwhelming firepower against defenseless targets. Against a human battleship, they were about to learn the difference between hunting civilians and facing Earth's navy. "Communications, open a channel to the Vorthak fleet," Kane ordered. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station. "Channel open, sir." Kane's voice echoed across space, carrying with it the weight of human resolve. "Vorthak vessels, this is Admiral Marcus Kane of the United Earthship Retribution. You will immediately cease your attack on the civilian station and withdraw from this system. You have 30 seconds to comply." The response came in the form of plasma torpedoes streaking toward his ship. "So much for diplomacy," Kane muttered. "All hands, battle stations. Weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten innocents." The Retribution's point defense systems came alive, intercepting the incoming torpedoes in brilliant flashes of light. Simultaneously, the great ship's main guns began to track their targets with mechanical precision. The Vorthak had numbers, but they had never faced human military engineering. "Target the lead cruiser," Kane commanded. "Full broadside." The Retribution's massive railguns spoke with the voice of thunder. Tungsten rounds, accelerated to a significant fraction of lightspeed, crossed the distance between ships in seconds. The Vorthak cruiser's shields flared and died under the impact, and the follow-up salvo punched through its hull like paper. "Direct hit," Hayes reported. "Enemy vessel is breaking apart." But the Vorthak were not cowards. The remaining ships spread into attack formation, using their superior numbers to try to overwhelm the lone human vessel. Plasma beams and particle cannon fire lit up space as they poured everything they had at the Retribution. The human ship's shields held, flickering blue-white under the assault but never failing. Kane had learned long ago that the key to survival in space combat was simple: build your ship stronger than the enemy's weapons, and make your weapons stronger than their ships. "Deploy hunter-killers," he ordered. "Let's even the odds." Launch bays along the Retribution's flanks opened, disgorging a swarm of unmanned combat drones. Each hunter-killer was the size of a fighter craft but moved with inhuman precision, their AI cores calculating attack vectors faster than any organic mind could follow. They spread out like a deadly cloud, targeting the Vorthak destroyers. On the mining station, the survivors watched in amazement as the battle unfolded. The human ship moved through space like a living thing, its weapons reaching out to destroy enemies with surgical precision. Explosions bloomed against the darkness as Vorthak ships died one by one. "I don't understand," Dr. Jolek whispered. "The humans are outnumbered 15 to 1. How are they winning?" Commander Theklan watched a Vorthak destroyer break in half under railgun fire, its crew venting into space. "Look at their ship. Look at how it moves, how it fights. These aren't the primitive beings we thought they were." The battle was becoming a massacre. Human drones swarmed the Vorthak destroyers while the Retribution's main guns methodically eliminated the larger vessels. The raiders' plasma weapons, designed to intimidate civilians, proved inadequate against military-grade armor and shielding. Enemy flagship is attempting to flee, Hayes reported. Shall we pursue? Kane watched the surviving Vortex ships desperately trying to escape, their formations shattered, their will broken. Negative. Let them run. Let them spread the word about what happens when you attack defenseless civilians in human space. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the mining station. Put it through. Commander Theklan's voice filled the bridge, shaking with emotion. Human vessel, this is Commander Theklan of Kepler 7. We cannot express our gratitude. You saved us all. But, I must ask, how did you get here so quickly? Our distress signal was only sent 3 days ago. Kane smiled grimly. Commander, when someone calls for help, humans don't calculate the odds. We don't debate the politics. We don't check if it's profitable. He paused, watching the last Vortex ship vanish into hyperspace. We just come running. The bridge fell silent as the crew began damage assessments and post-battle procedures. Through the viewport, the mining station hung in space like a wounded bird, its lights flickering but still alive. Kane had made his decision the moment he heard that distress call. 300 lives hanging in the balance. It didn't matter what species they were or where they came from. When innocent people called for help, Earth answered. The docking bay of Kepler 7 had never been designed to accommodate a human shuttle, but Chief Engineer Karan had worked miracles with the airlocks. Now, as the sleek Earth vessel settled onto the deck plates, 300 survivors pressed against the observation windows to catch their first glimpse of their rescuers. Admiral Kane emerged first, followed by a medical team carrying cases of supplies that gleamed under the station's emergency lighting. The survivors had expected aliens as strange as any they'd encountered, perhaps crystalline beings like the Zarathi, or energy creatures like the Void Dancers. Instead, they saw bipedal mammals with soft skin and expressive faces, wearing uniforms that spoke of military precision. Commander Theklan approached on unsteady legs, her scaled hand extended in the universal gesture of greeting. Kane accepted it without hesitation, his grip firm but gentle. Admiral Kane, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I am Commander Theklan. On behalf of everyone here, I must thank you. We had given up hope. No thanks necessary, Commander, Kane replied, his eyes already assessing the damage to the station around them. Just glad we could help. My medical team will begin treating your wounded immediately. How many casualties? 37 dead, 96 wounded. Theklan's throat sacs deflated with grief. The Vortex were efficient in their assault. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Kane's chief medical officer, stepped forward. We have trauma surgeons standing by on our ship, and portable medical equipment for immediate treatment. Commander, I need to know, are there any wounded who can't wait for transport? As the human medical team spread out among the survivors, something remarkable began to happen. The children, who had been silent with terror for days, started to emerge from their hiding places. The Kytherian young, with their luminescent patches, began to glow brighter as their fear subsided. Centaurian hatchlings clicked curious mandibles at the strange new visitors. Engineer Karan watched Dr. Chin examine his wounded assistant with gentle hands. Your species, he said hesitantly, you have medical knowledge of our biology? Chin smiled as she applied a healing gel to the Thenorian's injured trunk. Our databases contain medical information on over 200 species. We've been studying galactic biology for decades, preparing for the day we join the wider community. Preparing? Dr. Jalek tilted his feathered head in confusion. But, humans are listed in the archives as a primitive species. Spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. Kane exchanged a glance with his officers. Doctor, what exactly do your archives say about humanity? That you're a young race from the galactic rim. Recently discovered fire and basic metallurgy. Possibly developing basic spaceflight within the next millennium. Jalek's crest drooped with embarrassment. But, clearly, our information was outdated. Lieutenant Commander Riley, Kane's intelligence officer, stepped forward. Admiral, permission to explain the situation? Kane nodded. Go ahead, Commander. Riley addressed the growing crowd of survivors. Your archives are based on outdated surveys conducted by exploration vessels that never made direct contact. They observed Earth from a distance, saw what appeared to be a primitive civilization, and moved on. They never realized they were watching us during our early industrial period. But that was Theklan calculated quickly, over 300 years ago. Exactly, Kane said grimly. While the galaxy ignored us, dismissing us as primitives not worth attention, humanity was developing. We had to. Earth isn't like your homeworlds. It's what we call a death world: extreme weather, natural disasters, predators, diseases that could wipe out entire populations. We had to become strong, resourceful, and cooperative just to survive. A Kytherian child tugged at Dr. Chen's uniform, pointing at a medical scanner that was healing his mother's wounds. Chen knelt down to the child's level and handed him the device, showing him how it worked. The boy's patches flickered with delight. "Your people," observed one of the ethereal refugees, her gaseous form swirling with curiosity, "they seem comfortable with other species. Most races require extensive preparation for first contact." Kane's expression softened as he watched his crew working seamlessly among the diverse group of survivors. "We've been preparing for this day our entire history. Earth has dozens of different cultures, thousands of languages, every possible variation of belief and custom. Learning to work with other species isn't much different from learning to work with each other." "But, your military capability," Theklan pressed. "Your ship destroyed an entire Vortak raiding fleet." "When you grow up on a world that's constantly trying to kill you," Kane explained, "you learn to build things that last. Our ships are over-engineered because they have to survive asteroid fields, solar storms, and gravitational anomalies that would tear apart vessels from more peaceful worlds. Our weapons are powerful because we've spent millennia fighting for survival." Dr. Chen stood up from treating another patient, wiping her hands on a sterilization cloth. "Admiral, we need to evacuate the most critically wounded to our medical bay. This station's life support won't hold much longer." Kane nodded, then turned back to the survivors. "We're going to get all of you out of here. The Retribution can accommodate 300 passengers temporarily, and we've already transmitted your situation to the nearest inhabited systems. Transport ships are en route." "But why?" The question came from a young Thenorian, his trunk wrapped protectively around his offspring. "We're strangers to you. Our governments have had no contact. Why risk your lives for us?" Kane was quiet for a moment, watching his crew work tirelessly to help beings they'd never met before. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of human conviction. "On Earth, we have a saying: when someone's drowning, you don't stop to ask their nationality before throwing them a rope. The universe is vast and dangerous. If we don't help each other survive it, who will?" As the evacuation began, word of the rescue spread through subspace communications networks. On dozens of worlds, beings who had never heard of humanity began to learn about the strange species from the galactic rim who had traveled 47 light-years in impossible time to save 300 strangers. The survivors of Kepler-7 would carry that story with them forever, the day they thought rescue would never come, until a human battleship burst from the abyss to prove them wrong. 3 weeks after the rescue, Ambassador Veltar Nix stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. As the elected representative of the Rim Worlds Coalition, she had the difficult task of explaining to the Council how their understanding of humanity had been catastrophically wrong. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice resonating through translation matrices to accommodate the 100 species present, "we must revise our classification of the human species immediately. What occurred at Kepler-7 has changed everything." The hall buzzed with conversation as beings from across the galaxy discussed the footage that had been circulating for days. Images of the human battleship emerging from what witnesses described as an abyss in space, the systematic destruction of the Vortak raiding fleet, and, most surprisingly, the gentle treatment of survivors by human forces. Counselor Prime Zethkar, an ancient Zerathi whose crystal formations had grown for over 1,000 years, spoke first. "Ambassador Nix, your report suggests that humanity possesses faster-than-light technology that exceeds our current understanding. How is this possible for a species we catalogued as pre-industrial?" "That's just it, Your Excellence," Nix replied, activating a holographic display. "Our original surveys were conducted 312 years ago. We observed Earth during what humans call their Industrial Revolution and classified them accordingly. We never followed up because they appeared to be developing at standard rates." The display showed comparative technological advancement charts. However, analysis of the human vessel's capabilities suggests they didn't follow standard development patterns. While most species require 10 to 15,000 years to progress from basic metallurgy to advanced space travel, humanity accomplished this in less than 500 years. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. Such rapid advancement was theoretically impossible without outside assistance. Furthermore, Nix continued, their faster-than-light drive operates on principles we don't recognize. Our scientists are calling it dimensional folding, the ability to create temporary bridges through what they term hyperspace layers. It's not just faster than our systems, it's fundamentally different. Counselor Yerthak of the Trade Federation leaned forward, his insectoid mandibles clicking with concern. What are the military implications? If one human ship can defeat 15 Vorthak raiders. That's what makes this situation so interesting, Nix admitted. Post-battle analysis suggests the human vessel was holding back significantly. Their weapon systems showed no signs of strain, their shields never dropped below 90% capacity, and they used less than 30% of their available firepower. The implications sent a chill through the assembly. The Vorthak, while pirates, were not weak opponents. Their ships could challenge most civilian vessels and some military craft. For a single ship to destroy an entire raiding fleet while barely trying suggested military capabilities that rivaled the great powers. However, Nix raised a crystalline hand to quiet the growing alarm. Their behavior toward the survivors suggests something unprecedented. Rather than demanding tribute, claiming territory, or establishing dominance, they simply rescued the civilians and left. No conditions, no demands, no political advantage sought. She activated another display showing the testimonies of Kepler-7 survivors. According to witnesses, the human Admiral Kane stated that when people call for help, humans just come running. This suggests a species-wide commitment to protecting others that we've never encountered before. Counselor Morthlan of the Defense Coalition stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Ambassador, what is Earth's military capacity? How many ships like the Retribution do they possess? Nix's form dimmed slightly. Unknown. Our deep space sensors detected the arrival of at least 12 additional human vessels in nearby systems during the rescue operation. They didn't participate, but they were clearly prepared to provide support if needed. This suggests coordinated fleet movements across multiple star systems. 12 ships? Counselor Prime Zethkar's ancient voice carried new concern. For one rescue operation? It appears, Nix said carefully, that humanity takes the protection of civilians very seriously. Perhaps seriously enough to risk war with hostile species. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this information. A species with advanced military technology and the willingness to use it for humanitarian purposes was unprecedented in galactic politics. What do the humans want? Asked Counselor Valnera of the Inner Systems. Every species that achieves interstellar capability seeks expansion, resources, or political influence. What are humanity's goals? Nix displayed the final piece of her report, a message that had been broadcast on all frequencies from the human homeworld 3 days ago. Admiral Kane's voice filled the chamber. To the civilizations of the galaxy, this is Admiral Marcus Kane representing the United Earth Fleet. Recent events have revealed our presence to your communities. We want you to know that humanity seeks peaceful cooperation with all species committed to protecting innocent life. We offer our assistance to any who face threats they cannot handle alone. We ask only for the chance to prove that the universe is safer when we help each other. The message continued, we know our arrival is unexpected. We know our capabilities may cause concern. But, we hope that our actions at Kepler-7 demonstrate our intentions. We did not come to conquer or demand. We came because people were in danger, and that was reason enough. As the message ended, Counselor Prime Zethkar spoke for the entire assembly. It would appear, fellow counselors, that the galaxy has gained a new major power. The question before us is simple, do we welcome humanity as partners, or do we treat them as a potential threat? Ambassador Nix's crystalline form brightened. Your Excellence, given their demonstrated capabilities and their commitment to protecting civilians, I would suggest the answer is obvious. The survivors of Kepler-7 are alive because humanity chose compassion over convenience. Perhaps it's time the galaxy learned to do the same. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Humanity would be offered full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. It was the first time in Council history that a species had been elevated from uncontacted primitive to major power in a single session. But, then, as the survivors of Kepler-7 could attest, humanity had a talent for exceeding expectations. 6 months later, the rebuilt Kepler-7 station had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a symbol of hope. Where once it had been a simple mining facility, it now served as a humanitarian hub, its docking bays filled with rescue ships from dozens of species. Above it all, the UES Retribution maintained its vigil, a permanent reminder that some calls for help would always be answered. Commander Theklan, now wearing the insignia of station commander, stood in her new office overlooking the bustling commerce deck. Through the transparent steel viewport, she could see human engineers working alongside Kytherian technicians, while Centaurian traders shared tables with Thenorian merchants in the observation lounge. "Commander," her aide announced, "Admiral Kane is requesting permission to come aboard." Theklan's throat sacs inflated with pleasure. "Permission granted immediately. And, inform the senior staff, I want a full honor guard." When Kane strode through the airlock 20 minutes later, he was greeted not with the desperate faces of survivors, but with the confident bearing of beings who had rebuilt their lives. The children who had once cowered in fear now ran freely through the corridors, their different physiologies no barrier to friendship. "Admiral," Theklan said warmly, extending her hand in the human gesture she had learned. "Welcome back to Kepler-7." Kane smiled, accepting the greeting. "Commander, the station looks incredible. I almost didn't recognize it." "We had help," Theklan replied, gesturing to a nearby construction area where human engineers were installing advanced shield generators. "Your government's reconstruction aid has been generous." They walked together through corridors that had been hastily patched 6 months ago and now gleamed with new construction. Art from dozens of worlds decorated the walls, gifts from species who had heard the story of Kepler-7 and wanted to contribute to its rebirth. The memorial wall, Kane noted, pausing before a section dedicated to those who had died in the Vortak attack. "It's beautiful." Dr. Chen suggested we include messages of hope alongside the names, Theklan explained. She said humans believe that the best way to honor the dead is to protect the living. They entered the central hub, where the daily business of the station continued around them. Kane watched a group of mixed-species children playing together while their parents conducted trade negotiations nearby. The sight of such casual integration was still remarkable to him. "Admiral," a familiar voice called out. Dr. Jalak approached, his feathered crest bright with health. "I wanted to thank you again for the medical supplies your people provided. We've been able to treat species we never had equipment for before." "How's the medical exchange program working out?" Kane asked. "Brilliantly. Dr. Chen's team has taught us techniques we never imagined, and our knowledge of alien biology has helped them develop universal treatment protocols." Jalek's eyes twinkled with academic excitement. "We're actually publishing joint research papers." As they continued through the station, Kane was introduced to dozens of beings whose lives had been forever changed by that desperate day 6 months ago. A Kytherian child named Lux proudly showed off her pet, a small Earth cat that had been given to her by the Retribution's crew. A group of ethereal refugees had established an art collective that was becoming famous throughout the sector. "The ripple effects have been extraordinary," Theklan explained as they reached her office. "Word of what happened here has spread throughout the galaxy. Other species are starting to respond to distress calls more quickly. The hegemony has established rapid response protocols based on human methods." Kane settled into a chair designed to accommodate multiple species. "That's what we hoped would happen. Sometimes you have to show people what's possible." "Speaking of possibilities," Theklan activated a holographic display. "I wanted you to see this." Distress calls answered in the past 6 months. The display showed a staggering list: cargo vessels rescued from pirates, medical emergencies answered across species lines, natural disaster relief efforts that had saved entire colonies. At the top of the list was a simple notation: model, Kepler-7 response protocol. "You started something, Admiral," Theklan said quietly. Before humans, rescue operations were limited by politics, economics, and species barriers. Now, beings who would never have helped each other are working together to save lives. Kane studied the display with a mix of pride and humility. "We just did what needed to be done. The real heroes are people like you, who chose to keep that spirit alive." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Theklan's aide appeared on the comm screen, excitement clear in her voice. "Commander, we're receiving a distress signal from the Vega system. Multiple species under attack by unknown raiders." Kane was already standing. "How many ships can you spare, Commander?" "All of them," Theklan replied without hesitation. The station defense fleet consists of vessels from 12 different species. They've been training together for months. As they made their way to the command center, Kane marveled at the transformation. 6 months ago, these beings had been helpless victims. Now they were preparing to risk their lives to save others. Retribution to all vessels, Kane announced over the comm. This is Admiral Kane. We have beings in trouble who need our help. What's our status? The responses came in immediately, voices from across the galaxy united in purpose. Kytherian vessel Starlight, ready for jump. Centaurian destroyer Mandible's Edge, standing by. Thenorian medical ship Healing Trunk, prepared to assist. Commander Theclon took her position at the tactical station, her scales bright with determination. Admiral, the Kepler-7 task force is ready to depart on your order. Kane looked around the command center at beings who had once thought rescue would never come, now preparing to be the rescue others needed. He thought about the message humanity had sent to the galaxy 6 months ago, that the universe was safer when people helped each other. All ships, he announced, his voice carrying across space to vessels filled with crews who understood what it meant to answer a call for help. This is Admiral Kane. Someone out there is in trouble, and that's reason enough. Let's go show them that rescue is coming. As the mixed fleet jumped to hyperspace, the rebuilt Kepler-7 stood as proof that sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning a battle, it's inspiring others to fight for what's right. The humans had burst from the abyss to save 300 strangers. Now those strangers, and countless others like them, were ready to do the same. In the vast darkness between stars, the light of compassion continued to spread, one rescue at a time.